Hi, good afternoon. Shall we study Bible together again? Today we'd like to study from the life of Jacob, now from the book of Genesis today. And well, let me explain about Jacob a little bit. First of all, his name, Jacob, is a very peculiar, strange name, which means that someone to hold heel. What happened was when the Jacob was born, he had a twin brother. His name is Esau, and Jacob and Esau somehow like a fight inside of their mother's womb. And when the Esau came out as a firstborn son, the Jacob was holding the Esau's heel, and that's how the Jacob was named. Jacob means that someone to hold a heel. But also, which means that to someone hold the heel, that means it's someone's kind of deceive, or someone's like a takeover, someone's like a lie, and take over the someone's positions or seized, and that kind of meaning. So it's not really good meaning at all. Like the Jacob was like born with that name. It's kind of like he was called since he was childhood, like you are deceitful, you take over somebody's position type of name. So which is not really, it's a very strange name. But nevertheless, what happened to Jacob was when they grew up, that he actually deceived his father Isaac, and when the Isaac getting old and Isaac couldn't see well, that the Jacob pretended to be Esau, and when the Isaac gave the blessing for the firstborn son's blessing, that actually Jacob took over the Esau's blessing, and that kind of made Esau very upset, and the Esau wanted to kill Jacob. So Jacob basically escaped to his uncle's house, Laban, and that's where Jacob met his two wives. And also Jacob was actually married to two other women, and Jacob had 4 wives and also 11 children. Eventually he at the end he had 12 children, and now when he came out from the Laban's land, that he had to come back to where the Esau is, the land of the father, and that's what the story we will learn from here. The chapter 31 in the book of Genesis, chapter 31, verse 3. Let me read this. And Genesis chapter 31, verse 3. When the Lord said to Jacob, "Go back to the land of your fathers and to your relatives, and I will be with you." So here the God told Jacob, go back. Now Jacob was in where the Laban is, and another land with his wife and families, and now the Jacob was so blessed by God that he has many servants and also many cattle and donkeys and sheep, and he was very he had lots of livestock that he had, and he's a rich man now. Now the God asked Jacob to go back to his father's land. That's where his brother Esau is there. But do you remember that Esau originally wanted to kill Jacob? But now Jacob came back to where the Esau's land. That's where we like to learn today from chapter 32. Now probably you open the next page or so, you get the chapter 32. You will see here. This is what happened let me read from verse 3. Chapter 32, verse 3. Jacob sent messenger ahead of him and to his brother Esau in the land of Seir, the country of Edom. He instructed them, "This is what you are to say to my lord Esau. Your servant Jacob says, I have been staying with Laban and have remained there till now. I have cattle and donkeys, sheep and goats, male and female servants. Now I am sending this message to my Lord, and that I may find favor in your eyes." When the messenger returned to Jacob, they said, "We went to your brother Esau, and now he is coming to meet you, and 400 men are with him." 400 men. Now that's a lot of men. Verse 7. In great fear, distress, Jacob divided the people who were with him into two groups. Well, the Jacob was very afraid. I mean, now Esau, Jacob finally, God told him to go back. That Jacob went back to his father's land, and that's where his brother Esau is waiting for him. And now Esau is coming to meet him with 400 men, and probably the Jacob definitely thought that Esau now going to kill him. And so Jacob divided his group into two different groups. Where was it? Oh, verse 7. In great fear and distress, Jacob divided the people who are with him into two groups, and the flocks and the herd and camel as well. He thought, if Esau comes and attack one group, the group that is left may escape. So Jacob was very, very afraid. And now the Jacob prayed to God in the verse 9, and this is what the Jacob prayed to God. Verse 9. Then Jacob prayed, O God of my father Abraham, God of my father Isaac, Lord, you who said to me, go back to your country and your relatives, and I will make you prosper. I am unworthy of all the kindness and faithfulness you have shown my servant. I had only my staff when I crossed this Jordan, but now I became two camps. Save me, I pray, from the hand of my brother Esau, for I am afraid he will come and attack me, and also the mother with their children. But you have said, I will surely make you prosper and make your descendant like the sand of the sea, which cannot be counted. Now here comes Jacob pray to God, said, please help me, please save me. He'll be just about to be killed by his brother Esau, and maybe even his wives and children will be killed. So Jacob was so afraid, and asking God for mercy, and then just saved him from Esau. And that's how he prayed. And then we're going to skip to verse 22, chapter 32 in the book of Genesis, chapter 32, verse 22. Let me read what happens after this. That night, Jacob got up and took his two wives, his two female servants, and his 11 sons, and crossed the ford of the Jabbok. After he had sent them across the stream, he sent over all his possessions, and so Jacob was left alone. Now let me stop here. What happened was, now there is a river Jabbok. Now this is the river is actually dividing from the promised land, where the God is a God's promise for inheritance, originally from Esau, now Jacob. And now Jacob finally came to his father's land. Now if he crossed this river, Jabbok, from there is a promised land. And now when he came in the middle of the night, he got up, and he brought all his possessions. He sent ahead of him all his flocks and all his cattle and all his livestock, and all his servant was already in front of him. And then at the end, he even sent his family that he four of his wife. The 4 wives and 11 children now crossed the river, and together with his own possessions, he asked them to go ahead of him. And so now Jacob left alone by himself in the bank of this river, and in the middle of the night. And that's what happened. He is actually way at the end. Now I wonder why he is at the end. I think from the other part of the Bible we can understand that Jacob was very fearful. He was so afraid that Esau was going to kill him. And so he sent all those his possessions, so that when the Esau met these cattle and his servants, they will say, oh, the Jacob is way in the back, because Esau, his target is actually Jacob, to kill the Jacob. So Jacob thought until he be killed, those his position will be safe. And so he just left. He was way at the end, and all his position went ahead of him. And he's by himself, and being afraid of being killed by his brother Esau. And that's where he was then. And after this, what happens? Verse 24. So Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him till daybreak. A man? Verse 25. When the man saw that he could not overpower him, he touched the socket of Jacob's hip, so that his hip was wrenched as he wrestled with that man. Then the man said, "Let me go, for it is daybreak." But Jacob replied, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." The man asked him, "What is your name?" "Jacob," he answered. Then the man said, "Your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have struggled with God and with human and have overcome." Jacob said, "Please tell me your name." But he replied, "Why do you ask my name?" Then he blessed him there. So Jacob called the place Peniel, saying, "It is because I saw God face to face, and yet my life was spared." The sun rose above him as he passed Peniel, and he was limped because of his hip. Therefore, to this day, the Israelis do not eat the tendon attached to the socket of the hip, because the socket of Jacob's hip was touched near the tendon. Now, this is very strange story. Isn't it? I mean, all of a sudden, well, we kind of understand until Jacob was afraid of his brother Esau, and then now he's by himself at the bank of a river, Jabbok, and now the middle of the night. Yeah, that far somewhat understand, but all of a sudden, the Bible told us that there was a man showed up in the middle of the night, and what's so peculiar is this man started to had a wrestling with Jacob. And now questions are, who is this man? Well, verse 30, it said that so Jacob called the place Peniel and said, "I saw God face to face." And so, well, naturally, we kind of assume that that man, that the fault with Jacob was God. I mean, he's God but man, or man but God. God like man. Who is he? Well, we as a Christian, when we talk about the mighty God but the man, we often definitely kind of correlate with Jesus himself. But then, Jesus, before he came to earth, different Jesus who existed eternally. So throughout the Old Testament, we can see that potentially the Jesus, potentially the Jesus is there, or Jesus is doing some work. I don't know about this case, but it's possibility. He himself, the God-man, came down to meet Jacob. That's possible. But nevertheless, this is a very, very strange story. After all, God couldn't win over Jacob. Jacob was that strong. I mean, God is a mighty God, isn't he? I mean, but somehow God man wrestle with Jacob in the dark middle of the night, in the darkness. And then more strange is that when this man God couldn't win, he decided to hit the Jacob's hip. What in the world is that? Well, think about it. Well, I don't know if you did the wrestling, or like you probably knew if somebody hit your hip, and if the hip socket jointed, you cannot really fight anymore. You don't have any power in the hip. So probably Jacob was grabbing this man like this with his arm and said, "I won't let you go. I won't let you go until you bless me." This is crazy. And then this God man said that, "No, let me go. Daybreak. I have to go." Then that's very strange to begin with. Now, why he hit his hip? Now, this is some hint that we can see. If you look at the verse 35, verse 9, chapter 35, verse 9. the God himself met Jacob again. Chapter 35, verse 9. Let me read here. After Jacob returned from Paddan Aram, God appeared to him again and blessed him. God said to him, "Your name is Jacob, but you will no longer be called Jacob. Your name will be Israel." So he named him Israel. And God said to him, "I am God Almighty. Be fruitful and increase in number. A nation and community of nations will come from you, and kings will be among your descendants. That land I gave to Abraham and Isaac I also gave to you, and I will give this land to your descendants after you." Then God went up and from him at the place where he had talked with him. Now here, God blessed Jacob. Now at the river at the Jabbok, the Bible does not tell us what is the content of a blessing that God gave that to Jacob. But in verse 35, God appeared again. Here is a more detail how and what God said to Jacob. And first of all, Jacob's name was changed from Jacob to Israel. And also here the God said that he blessed that his descendant. Now if you read this chapter 35 and verse I think it's 12 I'm sorry, verse 11. Here comes the original Hebrew word is the king will come from Jacob's loin. Basically Jacob's hip or joints, hip, so loin. And that word is in a translation in NIV is missing here. But basically what God said is, the kings and your descendants come from your loin. And that means potentially when God touched his hip means he blessed him with his potentially all the Israeli will come from him. And also what's interesting is until Jacob, all that blessing was actually carried through the line of a mother or a woman. Now Abraham, as you know, that was blessed by God, and God told Abraham, "You will be a father of many nations," and so on and so on. But actual promise to inherit the land was only came from his wife Sarah. And Abraham had many wives and many children. For example, that Sarah's servant Hagar had children called Ishmael, but Ishmael was not blessed. Ishmael also Abraham's son, but the blessing actually went to the Sarah's son. And the Sarah was the unbarren mother, considered to be unbarren, but almost got touched the Sarah's womb, and the blessing went to Sarah, and Sarah conceived Isaac. Now Isaac married to Rebecca, and Rebecca also was considered to be an unbarren woman, but yet God touched Rebecca, and Rebecca had a twin. And the firstborn son, the Esau, was supposed to be one to be blessed because he had a firstborn right. Yet Jacob, who actually holding the heel of Esau, then Jacob's name was somebody to take over or deceitful. That he actually took the birthright from Esau, and all this is all the blessing went through the unbarren woman, the woman's life. But first time, in case of Jacob, all his son, he had 4 wives. It's not particularly the woman's line, but now all his son, all his children, the 12 of them, was blessed and become inherit God's blessing and the land as well. So touching his hip was probably special meaning of a blessing, and probably Jacob probably noticed that right away he was blessed, and probably that was possible one of the explanation why his hip was touched. But then what next thing is so weird, because this God man asked Jacob his name. He said, "What's your name?" Now this God man didn't know that he was fighting with Jacob. That's kind of strange too. But then for Jacob was asked that his name was not. This is not the first time. You probably, some of you probably noticed. This is actually the second time Jacob was asked what his name. The first time Jacob was asked his name was from his father Isaac. Now when Isaac that couldn't see well and he was almost blind, that Jacob tricked his father Isaac, and Isaac asked Jacob, "What's your name or who are you?" And then what Jacob says he's Esau. Now, if you're interested, well, you don't have to open the Bible, but if you're interested in the verse, chapter 27, book of Genesis, chapter 27, verse 18, it said, verse 18. He went to his father and said, "My father." "Yes, my son," he answered. "Who is it?" Jacob said to his father, "I am Esau, your firstborn." So Jacob, obviously, first time when somebody asked Jacob, "Who are you?" Jacob didn't say Jacob. Jacob said, "I'm Esau." But here comes a godlike man, say the same things to Jacob and say, "Hey, what's your name?" And this time Jacob answer, not Esau, but Jacob, his own name, which means I'm a deceitful, I'm liar, I'm just I'm the someone to take over somebody's positions, and that's how Jacob answered. And then the second thing so strange is that Jacob himself asks the man's name, and verse 29. Jacob said, "Please tell me your name." Well, that's very strange too, because Jacob, isn't he kind of knew this is God? Otherwise, why he asked this man to bless him? And also, verse 30, it said Penuel, which means God's face. And apparently, Jacob knew this is God and fighting with Jacob. But Jacob asked his name, and then this man replied, but he replied, "Why do you ask my name?" Which almost sounds like, "Hey, Jacob, you must know my name." Then bless them here. So that's very strange too. But you know, these two, more come to think of it, Jacob fighting with men in the darkness. This also is not the second time. This is also not the first time for Jacob. This is the second time for Jacob. As you remember that when Jacob was inside of a mother's womb in a dark place with Esau, he was wrestled with Esau. And so inside the darkness, and when he was inside the mother's womb, he actually wrestled with Esau, and then he just didn't let the Esau go. He was holding the Esau's heel, and that's how Jacob came out, and that's how his name was named. And now here is somewhat very peculiar. From the Jacob's viewpoint, this mysterious person potentially remind him his past, like his Isaac, potential Esau, and maybe God. Now, I just wonder, first time when Jacob was standing by himself at the river bank in the middle of the night and so dark, all of a sudden somebody attacked him. And I'm pretty much sure at first Jacob must thought that's Esau attacking him. And probably brave enough that Jacob would fight against Esau, even though he was so afraid to be killed. And now here come is this mugger that he had to fight with, and then he fight, and probably first he thought that was Esau, but then as he fighting with this mysterious person, he noticed something because his hip was hit, and probably he noticed it's something about deity that he's fighting with. But at the same time, when this man asked his name, probably remind Jacob something a little bit about his father Esau, and then his father Isaac. Then now he probably kind of asked this guy's name, "Who are you?" And the man said, "Oh, you know who I am," but the Bible doesn't tell us who that is. I was just wondering that, the Esau was supposed to have a birthright, And here come is a book of Jabbok, that when the Jacob crossed the land where the Esau supposed to be inherited. It's almost like Esau-like figure is kind of a stopping Jacob coming to the land, and then now in darkness Jacob had to fight with Esau. But at the same time, this figures ask Jacob his name, and that kind of remind us that Isaac as well. I just wonder that in case of this story, so mysterious and so strange, but God seems often let us have to fight with our past, and in this case, that almost Jacob was asking for forgiveness from Esau himself. Now, how come I can say that possibly Jacob thought this could be Esau? Is chapter 33 verse 10. If you read this, chapter 33 verse 10, and here the Jacob told Esau like this: "No, please," said Jacob, "if I have found favor in your eyes." Now this is actually the Jacob meeting with actual Esau. "No, please," said Jacob, "if I have found favor in your eyes, accept my gift from me, for to see your face is like seeing the face of God. And now that you have received me favorably." Now, Jacob seems like treating Esau like I'm looking at you like I'm looking at your God, and I think this is a triple, maybe a triple images, double triple images, that this figure, that God Himself become a man and to remind the Jacob that in this location is this is the land that he had to fight with Esau. He actually deceived Esau and Isaac, and now he had to face it. And then he wrestled and he actually won. Now his name was changed. God told him, okay, you won over God and man, and your name no longer be Jacob the deceitful. Your name become Israel. Israel, the El means God, Elohim El, that mean God. Israel means actually fight or victory. So basically, which means is fight with God. That's what the Israel means. Fight with God, or fight with God and you won. That kind of a name that Jacob's name changed to Israel. I just wonder that for you or for us, what is your Esau and Isaac? There's something that we are escape, or you're escaping from your past, or you just don't want to deal with, and you possibly you have done something wrong in your past, or you kind of hurt other people. Well, we often don't have a perfect life, and something we really didn't want to deal with, we kind of escape to the other place, and we just don't want to deal with. But at the time of Jacob, God may ask you to actually face your past, and in this case, indeed, Jacob had to face his past by himself. He's alone in the darkness, and God appeared, and now you are facing your past. You actually listen to God, and you didn't escape, but you actually go back to your past, and soon as you cross the border where your past you had to meet with, God showed up. Instead of let the Jacob meet with a real Esau, the God showed up ahead of time, and God pretend to be like Esau or pretend to be like Isaac, and let the Jacob to understand that he had to fight with his past and struggle. Now, in case here, that as you notice, Jacob didn't let go his blessing. Jacob was hold on to God even though his hip was hit, and now he can no longer fight, but he was hold on to God and asking God's mercy, forgiveness, and blessing. And God said, "Okay, I'm I can overcome, and you won. And God bless Jacob. And now Jacob's name changed to the fight with God, and you won. That's amazing. I just wonder. Apparently, even in my life, often God does give me a trial and difficult time. Especially, God tests me with my weakest part. Somehow, of course, God knows He's Almighty God. He knows my my most, weakest point, and He going to test me, and He going to challenge me somewhat. He almost like I am wrestling with God. That He gave me the task for me to deal with my utmost weakness that I had to deal with, and often I had to face myself. Yet God is with me. I mean, instead of me going to be totally crushed, God actually fight with me. And the things I had to learn from this story is just like a Jacob, we shouldn't let God go. We should hold on to God. I won't let you go until you bless me, until you, saved me. And in this case, the God said, "Okay, you won." And I wish God will change my name to, "Okay, you fight with God and you won," the Israel. And that's exactly the Jacob's name was changed. And verse 31, what happened after this? Verse 31, the sun rose above him as he passed Penuel. And he was limp because of his hip. Now the Jacob no longer in the darkness; he is under the bright sun now. But the God remind him his hip, that he had special blessing came from his hip, and all the Israeli came from him. And therefore, to this day, Israeli do not eat tendon attached to the socket of the hip, because the socket of the Jacob's hip was touched near the tendon. So now we can see the Israeli, almost the Bible tells, give us a hint that Jacob's hip, that's where all the Israeli came. No longer the mother's line, but for first time, Jacob is a line the Israeli came. That's why is God of Abraham, God of Isaac, and God of Jacob, and that's ended. And God of Jacob is actually the God of Israel, and a 12th tribe of Israel came from Jacob, and he was blessed. Now he's under the bright sunshine. After his name changed to Israel, the fight with God, and then he was blessed. I just wonder, are we like a Jacob? He is indeed deceitful. He was so bad in his character, and he was so afraid. He was basically chicken, and all that. He was so deceitful, but yet God let him fight with God, and God let him face his past and his most weakest part. He was so afraid he was killed by Esau, and that's the reason that he just left by himself at the end. At the moment, he's the most weakest, most vulnerable. That God attacked him in the darkness, and after you actually hold on to God, God let you be victorious, and you can live under the beautiful sunshine and the bright sunshine, and that seems like was a life of Jacob. And just wonder how we can be victorious, and shall we hold on to God until end? We won't let go, and God give us somewhat His fight. And now the a fight with God means also possibly means God is fighting with you. And it's not mean that you're fighting only with God, but the God is you're facing a difficulty. God is with you and fighting for you or with you, and your fight. And so we are not alone. God is always with us. Shall we pray? Lord, thank you for today's message, and we learn from your word. And indeed, Jacob had to face his past, and now he came to his father's land, and you appeared, and you stopped him going, and you test him, you wrestle with Jacob, and Jacob have to deal with his past, and you Jacob actually hold on to until the daybreak, and you told Jacob you won, and Jacob's name was changed to fight with God, and you won. Now you're with God, with Jacob all the time, Lord, and thank you, and please be with us too, and thank you that you always give us a blessing. At the same time, you let us fight with our past and the most weakest part. Please make us strong that we can win in this fight, and we can hold on to you until the end, so that you can bless us and you give us the name that we too like to be called, the fight with God, and we won. And Lord, thank you for this time. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Okay, have a nice day. Bye.